who are managing it. So no matter what you will put in.
Major, robust welfare state that virtually does everything for its citizens. So the target is to increase tax to GDP ratio, and there are a number of measures being rolled out. It is still early days yet. In addition, as was emphasized, Mr. Chairman, by the Honorable Senate on December 30, when passing into law the 2024 appropriation bill, you admonished the government, the financial team, to ensure that revenue that belonged to the federal government, revenue that belonged to the Consolidated Revenue Fund, was identified and was brought in. And that is a task which we have set about, and I'll give you the initial report from there because it shows the direction of travel. In 2023, January, the return, the take, the remittances from ministries, departments, agencies, federal government-owned companies, and revenue-earning arms of the government was about 20 billion naira. In January 2024, as a result of the concerted effort, which includes digitization, using technology to ensure that in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act and various measures and circulars from the Secretary to the government, from the Ministry of Finance, that revenue due to the CRF from revenue-generating government-owned enterprises was taken immediately rather than waiting for compliance with the extant regulations. As a result, by January 2024, the revenue was up to almost 100 billion naira from 20 the year before. That is a response, and that is a reaction and also a result of the measures that have been taken, although it is still early stages. Even for February, we're still collating the figures to compare. But what we can see is that there's a substantial increase in revenue coming from remittances by the federal government-owned revenue-earning enterprises, ministries, departments, and agencies. Essentially, the effort that has been started is to be kept up. And I'm sure, distinguished senators, Mr. Chairman, there will be a time when we can give further data in this all-important area. We all know that all revenue itself is up. We can see what is happening to the Federation account, and also because the Federation account is in Naira, the movement that has occurred in the foreign exchange market is also meaning a ballooning, I might say, of Naira revenue in the Federation account. Alongside that is our own efforts at the domestic resource mobilization, which, as I've said, has produced, when you compare the first month of 2023 with the first month of 2024, is essentially a five-fold increase. That's what you call a quantum leap. So if we have a quantum leap, if that quantum leap is measured, is mirrored rather, all through the year, and that is our intention, we can see that recurrent revenue is expected to increase substantially. The total revenue from June to December 2023 was 3.6 trillion. We're not saying that all components of that revenue will increase 5 times, but we are looking at the internally generated revenue to increase around 5 times, according to the current trend. we are expecting, and I think you passed the budget, that as at 2024 December, we will have roughly 13 trillion naira in tax revenue. As at December 31st, 2023, the figure was 10 trillion. So we are expecting a substantial increase there. And I think the estimate is even conservative. We're expecting much more. If I can just give us a sense of spending to date, because it's important. The reason why the government needs to increase its revenue is so that it can spend. We are actually not having enough revenue to deliver critical infrastructure, to deliver social services, and to deliver other essential services that a modern economy delivers to its citizens, delivers to its investors. And that is the reason why there is such emphasis on increasing federal revenue. Capital expenditure is important. From June to December, the period of which Mr. President took office to the end of last year, around 2.9 trillion was the capital spending. For the year, the budget was 8 trillion, but 2.9 trillion was what was spent overall. This year, we have just started. 124 billion has been spent out of the capital budget, but that's almost in advance of the gearing up and release of the capital budget proper through the computerized system. Mr. Chairman, sir, on the recurring side, we have spent just about 581 billion naira in January and February on savings and statutory transfers, and another 75 billion on overheads. You had asked me about stamp duty.
Honorable Inside, you said from January, is it recorded?
75 billion, January and February. Salaries, recurring transfers, statutory transfers, and overheads. When we look at the stamp duty, 1% of stamp duties that is meant to be collected, the actual stamp duty collected, and I'm looking at the year to make sure that I get it right. In 2023, the actual stamp duty collected was 53 billion naira in total. Essentially a monthly budget of 3.7. NAS, National Assembly, and actual collection was 53. So it's a positive variance in stamp duty collected. And I think what was of concern to you was that to know it's being collected and dutifully so. Mr. Chairman, distinguished senators, you did say that we should expect a interaction on a regular basis. As you want to stay on top of the figures, you want to stay on top of the trends of revenue coming into the consolidated revenue fund of the federal government, and at the same time, of course, a sense of where the expenditure is going. In conclusion, may I commit to doing exactly as you have indicated, keeping you up to date on the finances, the direction, the quantum, and the specifics of income and expenditure of the federal government, whilst as the person that has the privilege and vaunted position of effectively being the government's treasurer. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Looking at the fact that you collected about a total of 10 trillion in 2023, and also from June 2023 to December was about 3.6 trillion that was collected. We had a sitting, the last sitting we had here where we invited the Nigerian Customs Services, and at that meeting the Customs Service mentioned.
Corrigenda, Mr. The non-oil revenue in 2023 was 13 trillion. My correction, 13 trillion.
Okay, 13 trillion naira was collected as non-oil revenue in 2023. That's between January to December 2023. And between June, if I will recall what you said, about 3.6 trillion was collected, right?
June to what?
June to December.
Yes.
Hmm?
That was the figure I gave you for IGRs. Not
Okay,
total.
anyway, the most important is that 13 trillion has been collected as non-oil revenue. Custom came here and did mention that the country lost about 3.8 of this internally generated revenue from specific waivers that were given, which were not supposed to be given. We know that there are some items in the tariff which have zero tariff, so zero duty. So we don't count them as part of those lost. And I think I recall distinguished Senator Alero asked that question so that the custom officers can clarify. And they clarified that there was a loss of 3.8 trillion. Honorable Minister, looking at that figure, which I would say constitute close to about 20–30% of the collection, the total collection of them. What are we doing about that? And what measures have you taken to see that such did not reflect again in 2024? And the committee will maybe like to go further to finding out why should the country lose 3.8 trillion and to who? It's very important. So please take notes and tell us what measures you have taken to block those leakages. Thank you.
Allow my colleagues and Honorable Minister, thank you for the very exhaustive, very well informed responses that you have given to us. And I particularly note your commitment to continue to keep this committee abreast of accruals and the developments that the committee and by extension the National Assembly needs to know. Appreciate it. Mr. Chairman and my colleagues, my comments are not necessarily about the specific issues of revenue that the Minister is here for. I make these comments because before us it's not just a Minister of Finance. In addition to being Minister of Finance of the Federation, is also the coordinating Minister of the Economy, which means if you are looking for someone who will give you answers and explanations about the states and the direction of our national economy, this is the man. And that is why I want to, Honorable Minister, ask you to use this opportunity to throw some further light about the direction of our national economy. As you know, we're in very interesting economic times in this country. And it will be safe to say that the citizens of this country, a number of people do not have very high hopes. People are getting more and more hopeless. So I would like to ask you to assess the state of the Nigerian economy. Because dealing with the national economy that you are chief coordinator means things happening in agriculture, food security. You need to know what is going on and factor everything to formulate a coherent national economic strategy and direction. So, Honorable Minister, a number of people feel two things. Either that the economic team of which you are the head is not performing optimally, or there are those who feel that there are underpinning circumstances prior to the assumption of office of the present administration, and a number of things, expenditure, ways and means, and a number of things that happened that have made the Nigerian economy to be as precarious as it is. Now, you will give us an answer about a summary of why we are where we are. But most importantly, Mr. Chairman, let the Honourable Minister use this opportunity to let us have a direction of the economic policies of the government, so that Nigerians may have hope. There are people who are taking to the streets, there are people who are breaking into warehouses, there are people who are, getting agitated and even feeling whether there are even people who are thinking and working for them. But here you are, as head of the economic team. So I would like you to share your thoughts and give a summary of some of the key items of your economic agenda, and let us know how and when things may turn for the better. Secondly,
in the past, used to be 5 billion, even though it has to do with election during inflation. Honourable Minister, you are also in charge of fiscal policy of the government. We are interested in knowing what measures, what specific steps are you taking to revamp the real sector of the economy. It is okay to collect revenue, but revenue alone does not bring economic development. You have to do what we call economic stimulus, particularly in areas where manufacturing is involved. We are tired of borrowing money to fund projects. And the only way we can do this is by revamping our economy. We cannot develop our economy without revamping the manufacturing sector, which seems to be Commodore's provision for now. This committee will be interested in knowing what specific measures are you taking to ensure that the real sector is revamped. Equally, the solid mineral sector, which is a very important sector of the economy, and which has capacity to really overshadow even the oil revenue, is still untapped. So we would be interested in knowing what methodology are you taking to ensure that we exploit maximally the mineral resources abound in virtually every state of the federation. I think Mr. Chairman talked about concessions, exemptions, and import duty waivers. Honourable Minister, at this point in time, is it necessary to continue these exemption concessions and import duty waiver in view of our prevailing economic situation? Because, okay.
Coordinating Minister of the Federation. Like what one of my colleagues said, when we have opportunity to argue with us, we want to ask everything that relates to the economy, because they're the right person to ask. And if we ask certain questions and you think that we need more details, that's okay. You will ask A or B to come to give us more details. So please. Now the first thing is, you know, when this our government came into place, we removed subsidies and we replaced it with palliatives. I want to know to what extent have we implemented these palliatives that were introduced to replace subsidy. The second question is, from January towards the end of last year, our naira has been greatly devalued to the extent that at a point, dollar to naira was 1,900. This is within a space of less than 4 months. Let's 2 months. 4 weeks. As the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy, what I know is possible that it escaped your mind when these things were happening, came suddenly. But now it has happened. What are you doing really to bring down that as soon as possible? I'd like to. Then, okay.
I told you I don't. Go ahead.
Two is enough. Add one more. The third one is on subsidy. When this government came into, our government came into effect, I'm speaking because my name is here, we removed the subsidy. Removing the subsidy resulted to so many other effects, ripple effects in the economy. Rise in prices because of the rise in the cost of living and the rest of them. I really want to know specifically what you are doing to arrest this rising cost of living. This rising cost of living is predicated on the rising cost of those subsidized products that were removed. What are we doing to address the rising cost? Because the truth is that whether we will accept it or not, the hardship is there on the streets of Nigeria. We may be sitting in an air-conditioned office, but the hardship is there. And we should not pretend about not taking steps, quick steps, in addressing it. I think I will rest on that. I don't want to say.
Be granted. And after being granted, I mean, those that are abused are the ones that have been given. You say you are bringing in machinery. You decide to bring in finished item. You say you are bringing machinery. You decide to bring cars. You understand? Those are the ones that we lost 3.8 billion. So
bringing no material.
you will finish.
We started with and we ended with Mr. Chairman, customs duty waivers. Of course, there have to be incentives for production. Tax incentives, there are incentives in the oil and gas industry which have been fiscal incentives which have just been revamped to encourage production. So there were waivers on customs duty, running, as you say, into trillions, 1% of GDP, some estimates. There are some who point out that, look, the waivers that are actually issued come to perhaps a lot less, in the sense that, let's say, 1 trillion worth of waivers are issued. Maybe only 15% are taken up or can be measured. So there is cloudiness, opaqueness, and an element of uncertainty about how the whole regime works. And we noted that, and there's no reason why the country should be losing in this way, in this day and age. In a nutshell, distinguished senators, Mr. Chairman, sir, we are going to do away with the existing system. It is automated, which means that you apply for your duty waiver and it's processed online and then sent to customs and they see that they don't have to charge you. That system is what I may call, if my use of Latin, is an ex-ante system. You get it up front. The same system can be rejigged, even, sir, without changing the law. The law says, and the rules and regulations say, there's a duty waiver X%. It doesn't say whether you should take it up front or whether you should take it ex-ante. We all remember from traveling how this VAT abroad, there used to be VAT charged and you could claim it back. But it's only when you get to the airport and show the goods that you bought in town, hopefully intact. You can't start wearing them and still say they are new. But you will show them and they will immediately refund you. That is the system we want to introduce. If you want duty waiver, pay your duty. When we are clear that you have brought in the goods you said you are going to bring in, you will automatically get it back. We can do it. We have the technology. We have the payment system. Nigeria is leading the world in financial technology and payment. And so that is the commitment. The way to do away with a lot of what you would call anomalies is just to bring technology, shine a light on it, and have a seamless process. And that's the answer, Mr. Chairman. We are hoping to implement that. We are hoping to get the necessary approvals and implement it virtually immediately. If you want a duty waiver, pay your duty and get it back. I assume some of the biggest companies will have an arrangement where they get a time guarantee or something like that, which is just as good. In terms of the national economy, we should not be despondent. We have done the hard part. Mr. President, through his bold and courageous measures, which are recognized around the world as being beyond the usual, what you would normally see, to be able to so briskly and robustly change the things that are wrong. And it wasn't just a set of measures. It's not just lifting of subsidy here or margin of rates there, no. It is a strategic plan. The whole fiscal side, the government's finances have been repaired. Even today, you, distinguished senators, have helped further to encourage and embolden the executive to further repair the finances, the fiscal situation of this country by endorsing and urging us to do something about the leakages in the import duty waiver system. And we have explained to you what we will do. And even from your body language, I believe you feel that that is in the right direction. But so much more has been done.
as I said, there's a Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee of the highest standards, and they are going to roll out, hopefully, because it will require your own support and your own diligence to show them where they're going wrong, and your own hard work to ensure that we get a timely passage of the bill that is coming to implement some improvement to the tax regime and the fiscal regime in general. So if we are to assess where we have done the hard bit. And Mr. President always said that there would be discomfort and it would take some time for the measures, the benefits of the measures to come through. And he promised, in particular, he would intervene on behalf of the poor, the vulnerable, the weak. And that is what he has not only done, but he keeps doing. We are just restarting. And it took cleaning of the data to make sure that everybody that benefits from the direct payments, I don't like to call it cash because cash connotes bags of money. It is not. It is direct payment to people who have been biometrically and digitally identified and can be identified in future and be audited as those who receive this money. We have made sure that people have an NIN that is genuine and they have a BVN that belongs to them, and they have to have both of those to get paid. However, what is happening is that rather than disqualifying somebody, people are encouraged to come. They go to them. The National Identity Management Commission make sure that once they identify someone doesn't have a NIN or something is wrong, they immediately capture them. Same with BVN, whether you have a bank account or wallet. So not only is money going to who it should go to, as you know, 75,000 naira over 3 months to 15 million households, covering 75 million Nigerians. Not only are they being identified as genuine recipients, eligible recipients, but at the same time it is driving financial inclusion, which of course is the way to go. In terms of food security, I did, in my privileged position as a coordinator of the economy, I did meet the whole agricultural sector just before the dry farming season took off. Security was there, large farmers were there, small farmers, seed providers, input providers, machinery, people leasing machinery. They were all there. And we identified what the blockages were. No fertilizer has been provided, grains have been provided. And at the time, I asked that genuinely, what did they feel? And they said, we'll have a good dry season harvest. As you know, that harvest is scheduled for April 15th. And before then, Mr. President has released another 42,000 metric tons from the strategic reserves of grain or food, and another 62,000 tons or 60,000 tons of rice is going to be made available just to tide us over that period. Because you have a good dry season harvest, you have a good wet season harvest, and that issue, because the inflation is food inflation. And I don't want to take our time going into the fact that it is going across the border and so forth. But what I would say is this: by emphasizing putting food, putting money in people's hands, giving people purchasing power, that maybe raises prices a bit, but it stops it going across the border because at a little higher price, the farmers will sell locally. And in terms of putting purchasing power in people's hands at this critical time, apart from the direct payments, there's the nano industries, the artisans, the water sellers, the food sellers, and repairers and so forth, there's 50 billion naira going to be given across that whole ecosystem. 774 local governments, at least 1,000 people will benefit from 50,000 naira. Gives them cash in their hand to go and do what they feel is their priority. If it's food, they'll go to the market and buy food. Similarly, small and medium scale, and I'm trying to speak, Senator, to what you said about what about the economy as a whole. The economy is not the large scale. The heart of the economy is small and medium scale, especially in an entrepreneurial country like Nigeria, where everybody wants to be, quote unquote, on his own, working for himself. And those small and medium scale enterprises are being given funding at 9% right now through a scheme with the BOI. And the private sector is also coming in. Access Bank, we commiserate with them at this sad time for them. They've just weighed in with 50 billion naira for the small and medium scale sector. And we need that. We need state governments. We need the private sector to have all hands on deck to help the weaker in the society. We talked about inflation, and you have helped to solve that. But where has it come from? It's come from 8 years of just printing money. And the issue is that that money was not matched by productivity. It's not like when you earn dollars and you bring the naira alongside it, although there's even a better way than that. But that's still not as bad. It's not as if the money is matched by productivity, increase in output. It is not. And what happened was that for 8 years, the weak were left to their own devices. It is the privileged few that took everything. That's the reality. So that money supply must be sucked back out to balance the economy. You, distinguished senators, have helped. You have given us the mandate to raise 7 trillion naira, which we will do by sucking money from the market, using to pay back the central bank and give the government a balanced books. We are going to audit. Even the 22.7 trillion is still there, and that also must be dealt with through the markets, not through something that was just printed. But we will audit because we need to be sure. I think on the issue of recovery, sir, it is clear that there's funding under the Presidential Infrastructure Development Initiative. And Senator Alero, fiscal policy. I think I've said that fiscal policy to encourage growth and investment is being looked at. May I just end this section, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
I think the Honourable Minister, you're not doing bad here. You touch almost every.
The idea of the government coming to the aid of the weak and vulnerable by provision of funds for 15 million households. We've been hearing this. We are yet to have the feel of what this intervention. And I think the more we take the time, the more problems we have. Like that's what I said, nobody in Nigeria does know that things are very hard. My second intervention in the area of the customs, the waivers. Yes, you have given us the ideas that we have, and saying that you seek the necessary approvals. I want to suggest the chairman that now whenever the minister is going to do in the area of the waivers, should be done in collaboration with this committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are almost on the same page. All we want to see is that things change. And things are beginning to change. And we want as the Honorable Minister has explained, you have given us some courage, some hope that based on what we have seen with revenue collection between January and now, there is hope. But as my distinguished colleague said, revenue does not translate to growth. We need to put our fiscal policies. In fact, what we as a committee will want to see the Minister of Finance, who is also the coordinating chairman, coordinating Minister of the Economy, is we want to see what is the short-term immediate plans for rejuvenating our economy, and we also would like to see the long-term. When I mean long-term, it can roll between now up to 2031. Let's see what we are going to get out of it. Then, most of the questions that have been asked, you will find the solutions from there. I will give my distinguished whether you are an economist, you are a banker, you are a farmer, you know why subsidy is being removed. And any right-thinking Nigerian would not want subsidy to continue, because subsidy is limited to 0.0001% of our population.
Mr. Chairman, let me learn. Before
Then the second one, you spoke about abridging the foreign exchange market. No, I will allow you. I can overrule, but I will allow you to speak. Please, abridging the foreign exchange market between the parallel and the official. The reason behind that is not far-fetched. It's not different from the subsidy. I will be sitting at home and I will be given an allocation of $5 million. I will outtrip it, make money, sell it to the people in the black market. If you buy it at the rate, black market rate, you will also want to increase money. So what the government decided to do is to abridge that gap. So my distinguished colleagues, I think I've corrected you on that. Go ahead.
2.88 naira to the dollar. In that same speech, he announced the increase of salary of workers by 45%. That same speech. He didn't wait. And at the same time, he announced the palliatives we are talking about now. And he also bought buses for labor, civil servants all over the country. Why I'm surprised is you're talking about palliatives going to disadvantaged families. You are trying to verify them. Here you are dealing with a group, that is workers. They are identified, they all have NIN, they have BBN, but I don't know why the government is foot dragging to increase their salaries. Because we expect that you have done your homework before announcing these policies. So that is why, Mr. Minister, there is poverty in the land. The workers have millions under them. If you improve their income, there will be a bandwagon effect. It will go down. But because that group that is working is isolated and ignored, that is why there is still problem. And at the same time, you want to implement policies. You want civil servants to implement the policies, but they are hungry. They are hungry. So the chances of your civil servants being compromised is very high. So I will suggest, Mr. Minister, you urgently, without even waiting to appoint a committee which is going to waste time, you better decide and increase the worker salary. Instant. Thank you.
Representing Abia Central Senatorial District. Sir, on the 30th of December last year, the budget was passed, and the benchmark used, the dollar-naira ratio, was 800, and today it's about 1,600. Even from a layman's point of view, that budget is already in severe shock. Following from what my chairman said about short-term policies and economic measures, what remedial steps shall we be looking at? Because it cuts across every facet of the economy and human existence in Nigeria. Looking at even the security situation today, the armed forces budget was also based on that. And there is an impending need, an urgent need, to make sure that they are appropriately funded, because that's my primary constituency anyway, to make sure that they are alive and carry out their responsibilities. So I want you, sir, to please throw more light on how we can get out of this stranglehold as it stands now, even if it's at a short-term measure. Thank you.
For instance, farmers, people cannot go to farm. Let pressure also be on security. If you are talking about pressure every time, let us do today. We are saying there's killing people here. They are not going to farm. And you are saying that things will change. How will this change when farmers are not farming? How can we get production when we cannot meet up with changing the effects? It is when we get into production that the effects will affect the effects. So let pressure also go on production, and that will mean also pressure. If pressure will go on issue of security, please budget something. If we can't handle security now, before the farming season, what food are you going to get? As far as I'm concerned, it's not about availability of food, but it's about the purchasing power, the money to buy that food. What is the money to buy this? If, for instance, at the time that we did the agreement with workers, the wage award was following, I don't think workers would have been complaining now. At least something would have been done on a monthly basis. Let us not wait until we say 2 or 3 months, then we'll start paying in arrears. By the time we start paying in arrears, a lot of things would have gone. I think that is part of the problem. I was the Minister of Labor. We worked out this with you. Very fine. People would not have been complaining today. So please let us keep pace with the wage award. They will not even talk about salary when there was wage award. This wage award is the little that the civil servant will use in buying the food. But the food will be available, but he cannot buy. He doesn't have the money to buy the food in the market. So today we are talking of bringing food from outside. People are beginning to hide because they are expecting price hike. But if the food is available and there are so much money to buy, the price will naturally come down. So I'm saying this because I still think that I'm a member of the economic team. I cannot divert myself from the planning. I cannot divert myself from the implementation, because at every moment, I think we will help in the implementation. These are all only observations that will actually do
Collection of revenue, collection agency. And from the look of it, some of them are taking 4% of the total collection. And if they collect 7 billion naira, regardless of what their actual need is, they are entitled to this 4%. Some are collecting 7%. Regardless of their actual need, they collect that 7%. And nobody seems to do anything to checkmate the excess amount of money going to them. They may not need more than 2%, particularly now the quantum of revenue has increased. And these are the kind of leakages, distributions, that should be addressed. And if we do this, it will go a long way in reducing corruption and reducing waste and what have you. I don't want to go into details. Even the issue of operating surplus. Some of these MDAs, they are collecting huge amount of money. So some are collecting close to about 300 billion, and they are remitting only 50% of what is being remitted. Nobody is checking what they do with the remaining balance. So it is now time for us to look forward and see how we can block leakages, how we can stop corruption, and what this is, as I said earlier. Chairman, I think this issue is very important. It should be addressed by the Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator, former Minister of Labour, former member of the Economic Management Team, and my colleague, and still my colleague and a member of this wider Economic Management Team. Let me just clarify, first of all, luckily I'm not alone. Mr. President emphasizes that it's a team effort. Just for the sake of good order, let me clarify that when I met the farmers, I was tagging along. We were led by the Minister for Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abu Kyari, and his deputy, the Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Ali Abdullahi. And in addition, the Minister for Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Atiku Bagudu, was also there. So it was a full team that engaged with the farmers. That's just for clarification. More importantly, if I may say so, is that the suggestions, the one of wage action, which came first from my senator from Ogun Central, he talked about communications. We take that on board, 100%, and we'll just see how best to action it. The issue of wage action, really, I think what we were saying is that by now we would have expected to have had a new minimum wage structure, and it has not come to be. So the idea is to look at a payment of a salary increase, whether under any guise, across the board, as opposed to just federal. I think that's what the comment was, and it deserves full review and evaluation, and even action. In terms of automation of processes, definitely that is the way to improve things. That's the way to cut leakages. Finally, Senator Aleru, you talked about the cost of collection. That too deserves to be looked at. May I end by saying where we have got to in terms of implementing your own mandate, particularly to block leakages and to bring on board to the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the federal government all the money that is due to it. Twice a day, there's an automatic technological sweep of the revenue account. So government goes in independently and takes what is due to it, the government, from a revenue holding account, which all revenues go, before the percentage due to the government-owned enterprises now goes to them for spending. They will still be audited later, but as an interim measure, government is not waiting for compliance and for adherence to the rules and the laws by the government-owned enterprises, by the revenue-generating agencies. Twice a day, government goes in and collects. And I think when we apply such technology, digitalization, and automation of processes to expenditure, which we are planning to do, that will even take us further in terms of harnessing government revenue, minimizing government expenditure, and increasing efficiency. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much.
Distinguished members of this committee, Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, thank you, sir, for your able answers, responses. Indeed, sir, you're doing your best, and I want to assure you that FRC will continue to make our contributions to support as part of the government's economic team. Distinguished Chairman, sir, specifically on the areas of, I wanted to look at the last questions on the expenditure, particularly the agencies, government-owned enterprises that are entitled to certain percentages. Distinguished Senator Lera, I'm very happy you raised that issue. Those are some of the issues we have challenges with. But I'm happy that the rule now is that they cannot expend more than 50%.
But if you also check in the act also mandates them to have their budget. They must have had an approved budget before that time. Consequent upon this, they must not spend beyond their budget, sir. So I want you to take special interest in this because this issue will keep reoccurring. That is really where we look castrated as a commission of government. Because the act did not provide for punishment. What should be done when you spend outside your budget? We'll keep writing back and forth, and it will look as if we can't do anything. Because the act is a lame duck for now. That's why I've been calling on the parliament. I'm very happy that, Chairman, you mentioned that the legislature will take positive legislative actions to support. I want to say, sir, that amendment of FRA, strengthening it, that providing for punishment, for instance, if an agency sees funds that they don't need, most times they still spend it because it is still within their powers. And most times they will come back to this parliament, one way or the other, sir. I'm sorry to say it, somehow to get a retroactive approval. I'm sorry I have to say it. Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. I want us to look at it that we have to restrict agencies within their approved budget. If we do that, then we provide punishment that any who violates the FRA, what happens to it? So also on so many other areas you talked on, I'm very happy that we're here to be part of it. We'll continue to support the Honorable Minister as part of the economic team of Mr. President.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chairman. Support all the nitty-gritty of today's invitation. And we've been able to get from the Honorable Minister that we've been able to generate about 13 trillion naira in 2023. And the Honorable Minister has also given us an indication that from January to now, there's green light in what the collection looks like. We are increasing. So it's a good thing. And that the stamp duty we have collected last year is close to about 1% stamp duty, about 53 billion, which I feel the committee will also look seriously into that because it's seriously compared to the capital allocation. It's grossly very, very low. Yes. And then the releases so far, releases for recurrent, it's about 581 billion so far. Meanwhile, 2024 Appropriation Act is on. Nobody has remembered to ask the Honorable Minister what the position of the releases in 2024 is. But you have escaped that, so next time we will ask that. The issue of the single window will reflect to what distinguished Senator Alero asked about the 4% collection charges. 4% and 7%, and then the surplus, operating surpluses. I would want to say it here because when I assumed as chairman of Finance Committee of Finance, I made some researches. I have looked around. I have seen how management of finances, especially in government, is being handled. Revenue, how it is being generated. I have not seen one country where I will see where that agency collecting revenue is keeping surplus for itself. I have not seen it because every revenue collected it belongs to everybody in that country. So I think what Senator Alero brought up is a very serious issue that we need to look at. And the Tax Reform Committee needs to look at that seriously and work towards seeing how we can take advantage of what is happening today, especially with the single window to cut that issue of surplus, because the people you are giving surplus to are the same people that are employed. They collect their salary, they collect their allowances, they collect their pardon anywhere they go. So it's very important, Mr. Minister, you look at that. And then the envelope budgeting, which one of us spoke about you will see so many line items. It's continuous, it's just in the system. But from the budget office, they just roll it out and present it as a budget. There's need for us to seriously, not only you on that side, but even us here, to look at this. And this is the reason why we need to create the office, this budget office in national. It's very important. So with this, I think I will commend the Honorable Minister for being up to date with the situation about the economy. And also appeal to the Honorable Minister to work towards getting all the short-term and long-term plans spelled out so that Nigerians can take advantage of that. And let me be partisan now. We need to talk to Nigerians. We need Nigerians to know what we are doing. I was at Channel yesterday, and I knew the perception of even those that are around us, those in the report, President of the realm. I know what they want to hear. So there's need for those that need to talk. Because this country belongs to all of us. Nobody is not feeling the same thing that any other person is feeling. So all we need to do is just to educate Nigerians, enlighten them, and do the needful. And I thank you for also advising Mr. President not to import any food into this country. We can feed ourselves. We can work towards feeding ourselves. So I think with this, the Honorable Minister...
I was going to say before you round up,
yes, sir.
You have asked a regular question, and let the Minister use this opportunity to answer. How is he funding the budget? Does he have money to fund the budget?
I know that we have already told us that we will have some more engagement with the Minister. Even next week we have a meeting, so we can take advantage. Honorable Minister, you can now take it.